Welcome to Let's Draw Pokemon. Today we're going to be doing the second stage of Bulbasaur's evolutionary line, which is Ivysaur. Ivysaur has a similar body composition to Bulbasaur. He's a bit larger, and there's some other key differences. He looks a little meaner, a little more buff overall. He has a bit of a teeth showing, and his overall body color is a bit more blue. He also has a bulb on his back, a flower bulb this time. So it's as though the bulb from Bulbasaur's back has burst open, revealing the flower bulb, and it's getting ready to fully blossom. So one of the main things that you do want to consider whenever you're drawing out these characters, or any characters for that matter, is to take into consideration that you want to start by drawing out the big shapes and capturing the big picture before you start going into little details. So why would you want to do that? The biggest part of doing that is that you end up with a very strong foundation on which to put all of those little details that really lend themselves well to your drawing, and then start making it come to life. So whenever you're drawing out, say, Ivysaur, for instance, you'll be drawing out the head and the body. Those are your main features to draw out. You want to be able to get them proportionally right to each other, having it so that the body matches the head and the head matches the legs, and everything kind of comes together in unison. You want them to match up in size and look like they belong together before you start going into little details. You want to do this because if you start going into little details, you can go a little too far down the rabbit hole and end up rendering out, let's say, the head, for instance. You go and get the perfect teeth going on, the eyes look amazing, everything looks great, and then you go to draw the body. And for some reason, you end up drawing the body disproportionate to the head. It does not look like they match at all. And so either you have to redraw the head and waste all that work, or you have to keep trying to redraw the body over and over to match it. But if you get that base foundation with those large shapes intact, you draw it so the base looks strong and good, like it all blends together very well. Once you start laying the details on, it'll come together really fast. It'll look really good because it'll have a strong foundation. So that's what I tried to do. That's what I try to do when I design characters, is get those big shapes in first. Think of it like designing the overall silhouette of the character. So in this case, I decided to do Ivysaur's head and his body, and treat the leaves and the bulb like a separate entity, because they can just sit on top of him and it looks fairly good. If you'd prefer, you could draw the head and the body and then make the rough shapes for the leaves and the bulb. So I'm drawing out the bulb and the leaves right now. As you can see, they're composed of large shapes. They're not going into intricate details. They aren't fleshing out all the little leaves on them, or all the little bits and rips and stuff like that, or the stems, anything like that. You don't really get too absorbed in that. As long as you get the overall shape drawn out, you'll be able to use it as a stencil or an encasing object. So right now I'm just drawing out the bulb, but you'll see what I mean with talking about an encasing object in a minute. So with the leaves, I have an idea that they're going to be this size. That's the size that I want, and I think looks proportionally correct. And so now I could start adding in the little details to it. So the base is set. I'm either drawing in or just a little bit outside of that oval shape. And that way it'll give me the overall shape of the leaf that I want. Because Ivysaur's leaves are not rounded. They have all those little triangular shapes and squares and rectangles going on there. So you just, as long as you have that overall big shape, you can use it to base your little shapes off of it. So I'm just going to continue doing that, and then we'll head into adding more spots to Ivysaur, and then we'll go into inking. Now we're just going to lighten the sketch and start inking this bad boy, based off of the sketch, of course. One thing you'll want to do whenever you're inking is, especially with the leaves and stuff like that, erasing them to a fine point, so they look a little more sharp, a little more crisp instead of rounded. As you can see, I'm starting to do that on some of the leaves. Once it looked a little too rounded, I'm making them look a little more crisp by erasing some of the edges to a point. It looks a little neater overall. And now, like I did with Bulbasaur, I have a pre-picked palette. And of course I'm filling out the overall base with the fill bucket tool. And then whenever you go into stuff like shadows, you want to do similar things to how you design shapes and stuff like that. You want to try rendering out like the larger portions and keeping everything at about the same level of render, if possible. If you over render an area, it starts looking very odd and strange whenever you compare it to the rest of the piece. And then you have to go back and add in way more detail to the rest of the pieces than you should have to. If you do everything at a balanced pace and rate, and everything's kind of getting rendered at the same quality throughout the whole time, the image will look, it's a lot easier to look at it as you're going through. Like, it'll look a little messy to start, and then it'll start refining out, instead of just having like all these messy areas that you haven't fully rendered yet, and then this one spot that's just gorgeous. It'll come together a little easier and looks a lot better as you're going along. And it ensures that the quality throughout the piece is the same, which is really important. You don't want to have one aspect of a drawing or a character design be incredibly strong and then you have the rest is just weak. You want to make sure the whole thing comes out looking strong and polished and finished. And again, there's tricks you can use in Photoshop, like using the selection tool to just shade a certain color and stuff like that. And then you'll want to add in some highlights along with the shadows just to make it pop a little bit more, a little more realistic looking. But overall, I think Ivysaur is coming along really good. I'm going to be adding in some shadows for the leaves, which adds a little bit of a neat look to it after I've added in these highlights. So it'll be a bit of shading on the back with the leaves and a bit on the head, like there are some shadows being imparted from them onto Ivysaur's backside. Which just adds this nice little level of detail. And I think we're pretty much done. So just remember that you want to focus on the big picture when you're designing. Get the big shapes down and then move into little details for both sketching and in coloring. So thank you for watching, guys, and I hope everyone has a great day, and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye.